Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriella Mangelli, and I have the great honor of being Emily Neuberger's editor here at Putnam. First of all, I just want to quickly thank all of the librarians gathered here today. My grandmother was actually an elementary school librarian in Long Beach, Long Island, and she was the first person to put a copy of Harry Potter in my hands, which was a very big deal, as you can probably imagine. So librarians and the books that they've shared, both with myself and with all of our communities, are so important, and I'm just so grateful for the work that you do day in and day out. Second, it's because of that love and generosity that I can't imagine a better place to be introducing Emily and her debut novel, A Tender Thing. Set under the dazzling lights of late 1950s Broadway, this novel follows Eleanor, a young Midwestern woman who's thrust into the spotlight as the leading lady in a controversial new musical, a provocative love story between a white woman and a black man, one never before seen on the Broadway stage. What then follows is one of the most honest and captivating coming-of-age stories I've read in recent memory. As we follow Eleanor through her production rehearsals, a troubled out-of-town run, and a truly climactic opening night, we see a young woman navigating not only a new environment, one rife with political and creative tension, but new relationships and a shift in her pre-existing ones with her co-stars, with her composer, who's a man she's idolized for years, and most importantly, with herself. Now, as a reader of historical fiction and a not-so-secret lifelong musical theater fan, A Tender Thing was essentially love at first sight for me, but then it was made even better because it was written by the ideal author. Emily is a recent MFA graduate from Brooklyn College and has her music degree from NYU, but moreover, she's been a performer for over 15 years. And I will say this because she won't. She is immensely talented, both on the page and off. She's performed at Carnegie Hall for Stephen Schwartz and at the Music Institute of Chicago for Stephen Sondheim. She knows the ins and outs of what it means to create, perform, and share art, and she does so with such a passion and such a joy that it's infectious. A Tender Thing is not only her love letter to musical theater and its complicated history, but to the desire to make your work matter, something that I think everyone in this room shares. So I hope you love this book as much as I do, and please welcome Emily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. When I heard that I would be able to talk to a group of librarians, I was so thrilled. Libraries have played a huge role in my life and in the life of this book. Not only in terms of writing the book, though I spent many hours in the reading room at the New York Public Library on 42nd Street, or in libraries in Brooklyn, or in my hometown in Illinois, but also in my research and in my formation as a person and a musical aficionado. A Tender Thing is about a young woman who, in 1958, moves from Wisconsin to pursue her dream of performing on Broadway. It is born first from my passion for musical theater, which was fostered in libraries from a young age. So first, thank you for all that you do and for helping me time and time again. How many people here consider themselves fans of musicals? Okay, that's a lot. Good. The rest of you, I really hope that you will hear me out and hopefully change your mind. Musicals have a reputation for being lighthearted and for people breaking into song at a moment's notice. But if anything, the singing and dancing act as a sleight of hand in order to deliver something more powerful than words or drama could alone. Music always tells the emotional truth. So when a character begins to sing, the melody reveals what they are really feeling, even if they don't know it themselves. When I was 12, I got in trouble at swim practice for singing underwater. During our 2-hour practice, we swam dozens and dozens of laps. I love to sing, and at the time, that's the only thing I wanted to do. I discovered that singing underwater was physically possible, and I thought 2 birds, 1 stone. I could pass the time doing all those laps and work on my breath control. What I didn't know was that rather than muffle the sound, the water actually carried the sound waves more strongly through the pool, And the other swimmers complained that someone was annoying them with a garbled rendition, a garbled sound under the water, which was actually just my rendition of Defying Gravity from Wicked. It was very rude. Soon after, I gave up swimming and was able to dedicate my time to memorizing the catalog of Broadway musical theater. I checked out most of these cast albums from the library. A Tender Thing isn't autobiographical by any means. However, it does start with a girl in love with musicals, with no outlet for that love. In the book, Eleanor has a friend who owns a music shop who provides her with the cast albums that she falls in love with. I had the library. Every week, I checked out sheet music, scripts, and cast albums, and taught myself the music on my keyboard at home or in the practice rooms at school, and I also illegally photocopied all of that music into my binder. Sorry. My first kiss also happened while in a sailor costume on the set of a gazebo after I sang 16 Going on 17, in character. And I have to admit that throughout high school, the rest of them also happened while I was in costume. I remember the first time I was on stage alone. It was a treasured moment. I'm a soprano, and when I was young, that meant that I often came in for a duet in Act 2 with the main character. I was in Les Miserables playing Cosette. I was wearing a giant dress with a lace collar. Les Mis is my favorite book, and it's also my favorite love story, so I was so excited to have won this part. But rehearsals didn't prepare me for the moment when it was just me and the audience singing, and there was nothing between us but the orchestra and the conductor. I looked out on the audience and sang, and I felt power in that moment. It was just me, a teenager in a silly dress who, let's be honest, still hadn't kissed anyone, singing a song. But because of the writing and the costumes, because of the music and all those people who came that night knowing that they were going to see a musical, I wasn't me. I was telling the story. I was part of a larger illusion. That moment has always stood out to me because it was so different than the times when I was on stage with other actors. Then we shared the illusion between us. This time, it was just me and hundreds of people, and I was the only one inside of that moment. It was my first taste at being the one to tell the story. It was this joy of creation that sparked so much of A Tender Thing. In the novel, the shape of Eleanor's dreams change time and time again as she leaves behind the girl who moved from Wisconsin and becomes a woman building a career against all odds. Her dreams of Broadway are a vehicle, but it's her ambition and the relationship she has with her best friend Rosie, her co-star Charles, and the composer Don that help her build the life she wants in New York. While climbing up, Eleanor encounters some of the most powerful men in the theater business. In the last few years, we've talked a lot about people who abuse their power in different ways. These are vital and important conversations, ones that I wanted to explore. But what has also always fascinated me most were the artists who felt removed from the rest of humanity. The ones who have trouble connecting with other people, people who aren't comfortable with other people. Eleanor comes to New York enthralled by Don Mannheim's success as a composer. But when they meet, they instead bond over their mutual insecurities. I thought, what would a girl with no experience in the world of love in 1958 think when a powerful, handsome man gives her a chance? My grandmother told me how, in the 50s, she got out of dates by telling men, "I can't, I have to wash my hair." How would a girl from that time think, what would she do when a man like Don wants her ideas, her opinions, her companionship, and her friendship? Along with everything else Eleanor is learning, her relationship with Don throws her into an unknown area between respect and romantic love, intimacy and sex. Eleanor's coming of age, or really coming of awareness, is at the center of A Tender Thing. Eleanor comes to New York in 1958, on the eve of the civil rights movement, from a white town in Wisconsin. When she's cast, She's a sheltered, small-town girl who doesn't have any experience with people different from herself. At the time, in real life, Broadway was testing out progressive ideas with a bravery hard to find in other arenas. In 1957, the beloved musical West Side Story opened on Broadway, showing the world the love between two teenagers, Tony and Maria, from different backgrounds, and how hate is a systematic issue common, sadly, to everyone. A Tender Thing is set exactly during this time, when civil rights movements were storming and the ideas were being folded into the arts. Eleanor does not come to New York with these ideas or beliefs in her head. She learns them in order to tell her character's story. These ideas fueled the art in the 50s the way they are now, on Broadway, in music, and in books. I've talked a lot about the magic of musicals, but I have an even more personal love for the magic of reading. When reading, we're utterly alone. We're the ones inside of the illusion. That's in the end why I became a writer, because of that illusion between the reader and the author. The story, when we're reading, comes alive in our imaginations through typed words on a page, and it lives differently for every single reader and every single book. Even my love of musicals mimicked this. I wasn't going to New York to see all these musicals on Broadway. I was listening to them in my headphones in my bedroom or reading the lyrics alone. When a story is well told, I've always began to feel like the characters' feelings are my own and like they rise organically throughout my body. It doesn't matter if it's a movie or a book or a musical. When it happens, to me, that's the best feeling in the world. I hope that you read this book, and I hope that you like this book. But if you get anything from it, I hope it's that musicals are more than people just breaking into song, and the people who made them were thoughtful and smart and brave. Thank you so much.